Hey, hi everybody. Welcome. It's lovely to see so many of you. I am Lisa Hart, and I am the Executive Director of the LA Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. I'm in Oregon tonight, which is very exciting for me, and I would love to introduce the rest of the board as I see them. Charles, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Happy to do so. Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Miller. I'm on the board of the Palms Neighborhood Council, where I also chair the Green Committee, and I'm on the board of the LANCSA. Welcome, and I'm glad to have you. I will throw to Muriel. Is she here? There
Yes.
she was.
Hello. Don't mind me. I'm trying to eat dinner. So I'm also a steering board member of the NCSA. I was formerly of the Echo Park Neighborhood Council, and I was the chair of their sustainability committee. They also have like a really long acronym, so I don't want to say that. And then also I'm the chair of the transportation committee. Thank you.
And Muriel, can you please say a little bit, because we're going to have a vote tonight. Can you please explain what's going to happen regarding that?
So we're going to we are going to vote on the artificial turf measured by Bluming. Oh my goodness, I cannot pronounce that man's name. Bluming. No. Blumenfield. Okay. So I'm going to be changing everyone's names to VM or voting member or non-voting member. So NV or
So just
VM.
V or N actually will be best. Just V
Fair
or
enough.
N.
So please just cooperate. So if you see that your name is changed, I'm in the cut just doing that. So be patient. Thank you.
And Alex.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Tangelos. I'm also on the board of the LANCSA, and I'm the former chair of the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council Sustainability and Beautification Committee.
Thank you. And Aurora.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Aurora Corona, board member of the LANCSA. Anyways, and I'm also the neighborhood council with Pico Union. I'm the secretary and quality of life and safety committee and a budget representative. So like everyone here, a lot of hats, and great to be here and great to see everyone.
Thank you. Our mission is to advance sustainability and resilience across the city through advocacy, through sharing of best practices, and through community action. Our agenda today is to talk about artificial turf and to have this vote on the Blumenfield motion. And then we're going to talk about the Sepulveda Basin final vision plan. And I don't think we're going to have a vote on that tonight. I don't think we're quite ready, but we might end up having a vote on that because we're anticipating that City Council is going to vote on this final plan in August. So we're going to talk about that, and then we'll hear reports from our committees, and then we'll bid each other good night. Oh, and then we'll have announcements and stuff like that. So anybody who has any announcements can share those at the end. And that's about it. And so please introduce yourselves in the chat. And as always, this will be an informal and interactive conversation. And we'll have a very intimate conversation tonight. So please, we want to have as much networking as possible. So introduce yourselves in the chat. Please share your pronouns if you want to, and share your organizations and or your neighborhood councils if you want. And throughout the conversation, please introduce yourselves before you talk. Our slides were not working tonight. Maybe Zoom did another sort of update. Everything looked a little different. So
on my phone, by the way.
What'd you say?
I didn't interrupt you, but it worked on my phone. When I first went on with my phone, your slide was perfect. It was in English. It was fine.
Oh, but I could not manipulate things the way I normally do. So I couldn't make the changes. I couldn't get to them the way I normally do. So rather than futzing around with them, I decided to ignore them. So if I'm forgetting anything, just let me know. But if I'm not, I'm going to move ahead and I'm just going to throw things over to Terry. Oh, and we do have evaluations. We always love to hear from you folks, so we can, in the spirit of continuous improvement, we love to have you folks complete the evaluation. So Charles probably will, or maybe Aurora, who knows? Somebody will probably put that in the link to the eval in the chat. Oh, and look at Alex. Who knows? All these wonderful people are throwing me linked in the chat. So thank you guys. And I'm going to throw it over to Terry, who is, and I think we have a formal name now, who is the chair of the, see if I can get this right, the SoCal Stop Artificial Turf Task Force. So I'm throwing it over to her, and she's going to do a brief update, let you folks know what's happened. We're not going to do a deep dive on this because we've done a couple deep dives before, and we're going to do one in the future. But just to let us know what's the latest is, and I'm going to stop talking. Terry, the floor is yours.
I'll try to keep it really brief. So as you know, LANCSA already supported a ban on new installations of artificial turf. Councilman Bob Limifield's office authored an artificial turf motion. Dave Harone was the one who drafted it. I believe it's probably, I can either pop it in there, you already have it, the council file and the motion. It was introduced on May 24th and referred to Energy and Environment Committee. We worked with David Harone to provide suggested edits to the motion, and they were very amicable to that. And we met with David, in Bloomingfield's office, David Harone, to discuss those motions. And I think Charles is going to talk about that a little bit more. And then we kind of worked really hard when we found out it was going to a vote. We worked really hard to reach out to our coalition partners. Many of you here helped submit written comments in support of the motion. And there was more than, I would say, 75 comments in support of the motion. So that was really awesome. And then on June 28th, the motion passed out of the Energy Environment Committee. It looks like it's going to the full city council when they return from recess, which should be after July 26th, the beginning of August. I don't know, do we want to now go through the motion a little bit with some of the amendments we suggested, or the amendments that they ended up putting in the motion? Which would you like to do, Lisa?
It's up to you.
That's on the list, right? Charles, do you want to go briefly through the motion with some of the, the amendments we proposed and what ended up being, or?
I'm happy to do so. If you prefer, you can talk about how the original motion was, or I can do that too.
I'll let you do that. It's fine.
Okay. So essentially, as Terry said, the motion was crafted, and I'll be frank with everybody. It was one of these things where we feel that it was kind of disguised as a preliminary to setting up a ban for artificial turf, but there was no actual mention of that in there. We were told that this is kind of the political take on it, is that they want to do report backs and see where that leaves them, so they can then move forward with a specific ordinance that would call for some kind of moratorium or ban on artificial turf. In meeting with staff of CD3, we talked about how we weren't in love with that idea, but we'll certainly support them as a coalition in terms of the way they want to play it out. The original document, as it is in the council file that you can see right there, calls for reports back from the Climate Emergency Management Office, from Rec and Parks, LA Department of Water and Power, LAUSD, LA Community College District. And we suggested also that we had specific suggestions on what those reports should include, and we added language that we felt would make it more difficult for them to give a tremendously favorable report that was incomplete on artificial turf. For example, if Rec and Parks is only asked to provide a report back, they're generally presumed to be favorable for artificial turf. That report might just include the fact that they like it because it means there can be more play on their fields. That's their argument, is that people could play 24/7, even though there's no place where that actually happens. And so we included language, we asked to include language on things like the overall cost of removing this when we're done, the cost of doing studies on the hardness of the artificial turf, which has to be done, the potential liability issues for the city in terms of injuries on artificial turf, and several other areas to that extent. We also suggested that LA Sanitation and Environment and that Urban Forestry Division of Street Services also be included in this report, because we feel that both of those parts of the government will be very much in favor of an artificial turf ban, and will have a perspective on it with respect to the tremendous cost of the waste and the environmental problems of artificial turf for LA Sand. And for somebody like Urban Forestry, they're generally opposed to artificial turf because it gets used in the parkways and it prevents retention of water, prevents infiltration of water, and it can kill the street trees that they're working to put within the city. And so it has negative impacts there. Not all of our suggestions were taken. In fact, most of the specific details were not incorporated into what they were doing. However, they did in the amendments, as I understand them, they have not been published on the council file. As I understand them secondhand, the amendments did include a larger role for sanitation than what was there originally, and did include urban forestry being included in the report back, which we take as a real win there, because even though I fight them on planting native species all the time, they are on our side on this issue of artificial turf. And I think in general, we're looking at the situation now where as a coalition, we are going to be seeing a tremendous amount of feedback from the people that don't want to see this happen. And so that's going to be artificial turf industry people, fossil fuel industry people who are going to be providing talking points, and they've already done that in some letters they've provided. And that's going to essentially try to influence the reports that are coming from these various parts of the city. So our job as a task force, as I perceive it, and I believe this is consistent with everyone on the steering committee, is that we need to continue to move forward with meetings with the individual groups that are designated in the report back once it passes. And we do think the chance of this passing is high because it doesn't call for anything but a report back. And we don't want to see the system gamed by the people who are in favor of artificial turf, who have a profit motive to see artificial turf continuing to be used, so that we can, avoid an ordinance down the line. I think that's going to be the goal that would ban artificial turf. So that's the work that's ahead for the task force, if that makes sense. And LANCSA's role in that will be rather strong in terms of being the primary interface with the neighborhood councils, trying to get CISs done, and trying to build up stakeholder support in terms of understanding what's there and pushing back against some of the disinformation that we're already seeing, like arguments that artificial turf is recycled material, which it isn't, that artificial turf can be recycled, which it never has been. I mean, it's also technically possible to make gold out of lead, but it costs like $1 trillion an ounce. So, that's kind of how practical it is to recycle artificial turf. None of it will ever be recycled.
Okay.
And
Charles,
yeah,
I want to interrupt. I had asked that you put together like a visual with the amendments we had asked for and the amendments that were done. Do you have that?
I have a page that's just like, here's the groups that we asked to be included and then ones that didn't. But since I don't have the actual text of the amendments because they didn't publish it,
Charles,
I
guess
wasn't-
what? I just
sorry.
chopped them in there. So I made a document, it's a Word document, but I mean, I don't think, since it's not ready, I don't think we can do that right now. But I did put the amendments that David introduced or Bob introduced and were approved at the beginning of the meeting. I just popped in there as a Word document. And I would have to say, I'm really happy that it does mention LA Sanitation, which it didn't before. And it's a little bit more thorough. So, and it was much more thorough when it talked about rec and parks, what they had to look at to decide if it's, which was most advantageous. And, it kind of like almost prevents rec and parks from ignoring other costs, right? So I think that's one of our concerns, that rec and parks is going to ignore many of the actual costs
Right.
when it does this. So,
Okay, so sorry, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting because I think we're not as much, I'm sorry, I apologize to everybody because we're not as much on the same page as I had thought we were coming into this. We did get the amendments. David Hiron, who wrote the motion, did send us the amendments. They're not published in the council file. And my understanding is that, I'm not sure if this is true, but Andy Schrader, who used to work for Paul Koretz, I was like, why, Andy, aren't they in the council file? And he said, because they went on recess. And so city clerk is on, folks are on vacation.
They
But
are
so,
on the council file, Lisa. They're just under the documents rather than showing, but it's, the report from the Energy and Environment Committee is under the documents on the upper right-hand corner of the council file.
Is it? 'Cause I didn't see it either, so that's pretty
we
wild.
haven't seen it. So if you can put that in the
If you
chat,
can
that
let
would be
me
great.
share screen, I can show you because it's really just one page.
You can share the screen. Anybody can, if you could show us, that would be great. We haven't seen it.
So those are the ones
Um,
you gave me, Lisa, from David. So that's the ones I popped into the chat or the amendment.
You're talking about the report from the Energy and Environment Committee?
Yep. Here it is.
Oh.
Can you see?
I do see.
Okay, so these are
know.
all the reports that they're asking for.
No,
It's
just a
black.
second. All I see,
But that's not, yeah, that's the original language.
No, these are the instructions from, these are the modifications, like this second page are the ones that went to RAP, like,
Because what I saw
Okay.
was the original
Okay, I see what you're
language.
saying. I
Do
see
you
what
see
you're
it,
saying.
Charles? Okay.
okay.
I didn't, I'm not seeing it when she shares her screen. Are other people seeing it? Because that didn't work for me.
No. it's black.
I am.
I didn't. Seems
right.
random.
I didn't get it
just found
either.
them today. But I know always to look for the committee report because that's when where they put the amendments.
Oh, that's wild, because I didn't see it either, but I will look for it, but that is the.
I
the
just put a
amendment.
link to it in there.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Chelsea.
So
Okay, so-
anyway, sorry, Lisa, if we are not as organized on this as you were hoping we would be for this meeting in terms of the presentation, but I think
Yeah.
the overall idea is here. We've made some progress in shaping this motion in a way that we think is favorable and has a chance to produce a report back that we think is more conducive to our overall goal. And the stated goal, privately stated goal of Council District 3 is to move toward a ban of artificial turf. So they are, they're certainly, unless they're telling other people different things, they're certainly on the same page as we are in terms of their motivation here. So,
Right.
But I did think before people vote tonight, I really did want people to see what we had asked for and what we got. And I certainly,
Well, do you want to
Uh,
call up the motion and the amendments that they included, which is,
well, I wanted, can somebody put the text of the amendments in the chat since I wasn't able to see what Kathy,
I did,
you did? That's in the chat now?
yes. Says-
I
Okay,
can
so we
also
won't be able to
share
see-
our original letter, which has our language and what we asked for.
Okay, so we won't be able to do the side by side that I thought we were going to share, but people will be
Why
able
don't
to.
we just take a look at the amendments that are in there? I mean, and we can talk through those.
Okay. Could you do that, Terry?
Well, Charles,
Hold on
maybe
just a
Charles
second.
can pull it up
I've
because
got
he
it.
has co-hosts. And he can
Yeah.
pull those up to the amendments. Which again, they did a good job of incorporating our concerns and trying
Or
to.
anybody
keep
can
the
share their
department honest.
screen. Okay.
Okay. So this is the letter that the coalition put together. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, so the red language is a correct, let's say, no, the red language is original language, I believe. And what I have it explained here. It's been a while since we did this. Okay, the suggested revisions are in red, the original text is in blue, and any contextual notes are black, but I think I took out all the contextual notes except for just this little bit right here. All right, so anything you're seeing on here that is red is our new language, and anything that is blue is language from the original, and I've crossed out the blue in some places where we suggested it. So some of this stuff at the beginning, frankly, is preamble language, and it's just to have a more specificity with respect to why we're doing this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we are tight on time. That doesn't affect the action clauses. If we move down here to the action clauses, starting with I therefore move, we suggested that there should be within 90 days a report back. They didn't add that. Different council districts will tell you different things in terms of their staff, in terms of their belief on whether or not there should be a time limit on things. and CD3 doesn't believe that that was the best way to go. And they explained that in the meeting. It wasn't a huge factor in what we were doing. So we just kind of let that go. And then with respect to the city's chief heat officer and CEMO, we suggested that they focus on urban heat island effect rather than other regions around the country. And trying to do an analogy, we suggested that a better use for that would be to ask other organizations like LA Sand to do that, because they're more in touch with that. That piece of feedback was not incorporated into what was done. But we also included on this, I'm jumping all around the place here, sorry. In the second clause here, we included new language throughout to add specificity from new and replacement installations of synthetic grass. In other words, we didn't want there to be a ban on future installations, but allowing people who have to replace it every 8 years, 10 years to be able to do that. That was not included in what was input in the amendments document that I'm seeing right here. So we still would push for that language in the ordinance. It's not necessarily a deal breaker on a report back. Also, here's what Terry was referencing with respect to rec and parks. These things in red, again, are our additions. We wanted rec and parks to not just be able to talk about life cycle costs and installation and maintenance, but also have to talk about flood mitigation, water retention, injury liability, hardness testing, all significant, tangible, and potentially quite detrimental costs that have to be factored into this. And also the functional lifespan costs at the end of using this, because again, depending on the amount of use, artificial turf case scenarios will last anywhere from 8 to 15 years, depending on how much it's being used, the condition under it is being used, and the particular brand and type of artificial turf. And so that there is a cost at end of life, because you basically are starting over, ripping it out and putting in new plastic carpet to replace it, and with all the maintenance of doing that installation. We also had just some very brief language here on not using the word California friendly, but using native California landscaping. Unfortunately, that is not in the amended documents, which makes me very irritated, but so it goes. And then we move down here to all of this stuff being read in new language. It was not done in the amended document that Terry suggested exactly.
Everyone, thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait a few.
But I don't know where that came from, but
Please, we welcome you to start participating in
that's coming
our
from Aurora,
That's
so I'm
Aurora,
reading
yeah.
her. The red language here is our recommendation to expand what sanitation and environment is doing, and also to include urban forestry. And then if you look at the document, does that now override? Can you see the amended document?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, so it's just, I'm going to stop the share and do it again to show you the amended document. Okay, this is now that section as it is amended. A little bit of what we included was in there, and including down here under 5, you can see urban forestry has now been added to provide their perspective on it. And sanitation is now expanded somewhat in what they're being asked to do. So some of what we did with the coalition suggestions has been incorporated into this. As I mentioned earlier, I'm sorry that we weren't better organized on this tonight. We're very comfortable with the idea that even if this report back is imprecise and imperfect with respect to the way we would have written it necessarily, we wouldn't have written a report back. We probably would have gone straight for a ban. And something that Kathy and I put together months ago actually started along that path. But we're pretty comfortable at this point that this can pass, because it is not taking a position on artificial turf. It is asking all these departments to discuss the implications of all of this. Now, that being
Charles,
said,
I'm worried
Okay.
I mean, I just feel that the petroleum industry and artificial turf industry, if they could stop it now, before it even goes to a study, they're going to try that. We already know lobbyists were at the meeting at City Hall and spoke on behalf of this. We know the industry is submitting letters to comments. So I just think we still need to, do everything we can to get CISs
Sure.
submitted from the neighbor councils. Glenn mentioned maybe giving a presentation for Vank. We talked to Bob's office about holding a town hall, we can call it, with panelists to get more information. We can invite different city heads and coalition partners to that town hall and try to drive more understanding and education. And we are reaching out to city council offices to meet with them and remind them how bad this product is, why this motion is so important, and work with David Herone and Bob's office to make sure that these reports are honest reports that take into consider all the harms and costs of the artificial turf. And we already know which departments will kind of give us a bit of a hard time, but we're also going to reach out to LADWP, LA Sanitation, hopefully make sure they understand all the costs too. And
I completely agree with you, Terry. And you're right. We need to really encourage our stakeholders and people within this particular organization to go back to your neighborhood councils and encourage those CISs in favor of this motion, and also to include language in it that you're in favor of an artificial turf ban, not just in favor of the motion for report back. But where I think you and I might differ is I think the more strategic plan that will be implemented is to try to get those report backs to be as terrible as possible as an opportunity to defeat this happening in other cities around the country. And that if there ever is a motion then subsequently introduced that calls for a ban, to utilize the evidence in those reports to defeat that both here and in other cities in Southern California, which are discussing this issue.
exactly.
Okay, let's go to Terry. I'm sorry. Terry, are you okay if we go to
Oh, for sure. I know we
hands
go to,
raised?
yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Joanne.
I just have had such a.
And Joanne, introduce yourself.
I'm
Introduce yourself.
sorry. Okay, Joanne D'Antonio, Chair of the Trees Committee and from the Greater Valley Glen Neighborhood Council. I'm concerned because the history of report backs is that's where good motions go to die. And I just don't think they have time, especially with the budget cuts and everything, that I can't imagine Rec and Parks doing a report back on this. I just can't imagine urban forestry paying attention to this. So I've never seen urban forestry do a report back. They'll defer it to Rachel, who's busy with the urban forestry management plan. I don't think she'll have time to write it. I just, I don't understand why the city doesn't have consultants paid to write these report backs. If they feel that they have to have a report, they need to hire people to write them with, in consultation with these various departments. But I don't think the departments will do it. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you, Joanne, but this is the lane we were offered. We went around and met with quite a few different council district
No, I
offices.
understand that. This is not a criticism of you. It's a criticism of the system that we put all these energies into trying to, there's that famous Marquise Harris Dawson bill about making property trees more protected, not just the protected trees. And Rachel spent a lot of time doing a 30-page report back. And when it went to city council, they asked for 8 more report backs. And so the thing was basically, it was a burial. Maybe the urban forestry management plan will count as those 8 report backs, but most of the time, no one has time to do them. It's very sad. I mean, I just don't understand why we can't, we have to find another way. I mean, this is not for you to solve, Terry and Charles. I mean, I think you've done, great work here, but I'm just, I just get depressed every time I hear the word report back. Thank you.
And I will just say one thing though, Stephen Dupre was at the meeting And he spoke up for urban forestry and said, you need to support this motion. We have trees across Los Angeles dying because of this product.
But will he write
He's from
the?
urban forestry, so he was there to speak on this issue. So
Yeah,
that is very
I know
encouraging.
that, but will he write a report back? I don't know. I've never heard urban forestry write a report back, not once. So,
Even if it's just a 1-paragraph document to the extent of what he just said in testimony, that's still very valuable.
okay, then I suggest that you and Terry are gonna have to sit on each department and help them write their report back.
That's the plan.
Okay, then,
And yeah, so to be clear, and it's more than Charles and Terry, just so you know, we have a growing core group who are working hard on this. And part of our plan is to reach out to all the departments who have been asked to write reports and help them, not help them write the report, but make sure that they have the information that we want them to have to write these reports. That is part of our plan.
right.
Andrea.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Andrea Leon Grossman and I work for Vote Solar. But before I worked at Vote Solar, I worked for an EJ organization that had a campaign against plastics, and I'm very familiar with this issue. And I think a lot of the amendments that were asked, all the report backs, have already been studied by Cornell University. So if we have a coalition against this artificial turf, I think that, it's just a matter of sending the information to those departments and just sending that back to the to Bloomingfield or the E&E committee. I don't know if it's going to be the full city council, but I think all that information is already done. There's no studies that need to be done and no funds that need to be dispersed for this type of study. I think all that information is already available.
Are you referring to the Zero Waste Ithaca information and slides, that thing?
Yeah, I just posted it on the chat.
I already submitted it to Bloomingfield's office. It's a fabulous webinar and it's on the NCSA web.
Yeah,
website.
I also sent it to David Hiron.
Yeah, I
yeah.
sent it too. So David Hiron has it, Jeff has it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
It's okay if lots
Thank
more
you.
people send it too.
And Andrea, are you on the, I need to make sure, I don't remember if you are on our task force. You know what, we should make sure, Terry or Kathy Schaefer, can you
Yes.
put the Google Sheet list in the chat, please?
Yep.
So if you guys haven't, a lot of you folks are already signed up on that list for the task force if you want to be involved. But Kathy is going to put that list. And if you're not on it and you want to be on it, please sign up because that's how people can stay involved with us. Thank you, Kathy. 818. And Andrea, if you're not on it, I'm going to put you on it.
Thanks.
818, go ahead.
They have to unmute. There it is.
Is that the 2212?
Yes. Oh, Glenn.
Okay.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Right, Glenn Bailey. Just a comment on report back. So while it's true that a lot of council files just sort of die and expire, others get acted on and then no report backs happen. I don't know what the percentage is, but I think it's a direct correlation to the amount of interest, not only from the council member, the author, but also from the public. And so on this issue, I think we can make a difference to make sure that the report backs actually do get done. But of course, there'll be more influence coming from like Bloomingfield's office as well. So I think the big question that I don't know, and if anyone knows, is yes, sometimes the report backs are just a couple pages. I'm just thinking of the ones I know of as they relate to neighborhood councils, 4 or 5 pages as opposed to a full report. And I think likely it's a shorter rather a longer type of thing. But does anyone know what's expected as far as the detail, the length, information that is being asked of the various departments, so we would know that it's a really heavy lift or not? Because honestly, most of the report backs it's not that much big of a lift to do 4, 5, 6 pages. So that would be helpful to know. Thanks.
You
I just
never
like to-
ask. I've never seen I've never seen a requested length specified. I've never seen that ever.
I would just point out that when we were there for the votes at City Hall, we had a great opportunity to speak with David in depth, and he did say that it will be up to him, and he sees it as his job to follow up with each of these departments and make sure these report backs are honest, they're thorough, and they're timely. So he felt that would be a part of his job.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
That's a
and I
good
wasn't
It's
implying
part
that there was a specification for a report back, just if there was any understanding of how detailed and whatever. That's all. They don't specify the length. They just, enough to cover the subject. But okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. That's okay. I don't know. That's a good question, Glenn, if there's some kind of implied. I mean, I think there's a norm. I mean, I don't know. I certainly am not in the weeds enough to know. I think there's sort of an implied, or what would you call it? Like a kind of standard. But that's all I really know.
No, there isn't. There isn't. I've seen them all different lengths. It's just that certain departments are more likely to write them than others.
Just so you know, if your name isn't on that sheet, it's because you haven't put your name on that sheet. Your name is only on that sheet if you have put your name on that sheet, or if we know that you have a specific interest in this. I put a couple of people's names on the sheet because I've known that they've had an interest, but you are more than welcome to put your name on that sheet, the link to which Kathy put in the chat.
You want to
Okay,
talk about
we are-
rec and parks and the upcoming meetings and
Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
I was just gonna say, so we feel there needs to be a lot of pressure put on rec and parks. And they have some upcoming meetings, some are close by. Kathy did that for us. I don't know if Kathy, you have it available, but one of the first meetings is July 18th. And it is at the Friendship Auditorium.
I put that one in the chat.
Oh,
But-
thank you, Kathy.
But I can put the rest of them also in there.
And what we found the couple of times we spoke is they are supposed to give you 2 minutes, and sometimes they cut it short. So if you can make it, that'd be great. And Valeria, you're here, right? Do you want to talk about Pally Park, Pacific Palisades, what you're working on?
Sure. I actually just found out today that
And Valeria, can you please introduce yourself?
apologies. Yes. My name is Valeria. I'm from Resilient Palisades. I just found out today that the meeting on July 18th has been postponed because the vendor will not be there. But we are still allowed to make a public comment if we'd like. As soon as I get the info, I will go ahead and send that out. Basically, it's an AstroTurf field that's being proposed on a baseball field in adjacent to a riparian corridor right above on the coastline. So Coastal Commission might be it might be a zoning area for them to have jurisdiction over. Still looking into those logistics.
If you need help with that, Valeria, about who to contact over there, let me know, because Diane Wilkie has worked with them considerably, and she was involved with UC Santa Barbara getting that project halted.
Yes, I definitely will. I do need that. Thank you.
I think that's all I have. Are there any other questions?
Terry,
about
you
this
wanted to talk,
motion?
I think, a little bit about CISs and stuff and resources, didn't you?
Okay, so on the NCSA website and in addition, our coalition, we have access to many webinars, fact sheets, websites. There's a lot of information. I am going to put together a little presentation. If you need something to bring back to your neighborhood council, our fact sheet is also available. And I know I'm meeting with my neighborhood council land use committee this week to explain to them why this motion is so important and all the things that are wrong with artificial turf. So I'm hoping this month to get a CIS passed, our motion passed to submit a CIS. But if you have questions or need more information, I'm happy to make that available to you. And I can put my email in the chat.
And this is a big deal. I think we don't expect, most of us don't expect this phase, which is just asking for a study, to be too hard. But the next phase, which is after the reports, if we get them, and then actually getting city council to pass a ban, we think that's a really, really, really heavy lift. So we want all neighborhood councils to help us. We're really this is not an easy one, you guys. So we
And I think it's
really want,
important. I think
Go
it's
ahead.
important, Lisa, we point out we would be the first major city in the US to do this, and it would have all kinds of ramifications. The fact sheet that our coalition has put together is also on the splash page of laclimatereality.org. And if you need another place to find it and access it, and links to information there. I don't think you'd be in this room if you thought covering the world with plastic carpet was a good idea. And so I would really encourage us to go ahead and vote in favor of supporting this tonight, so that we can just get it on the record. And I don't think there is a compelling argument that comes from a standpoint of sustainability that would oppose this effort.
Thank you.
Melanie?
Thanks. I'm just curious, you've been talking to all the council offices, and I'm wondering if you had received any pushback or questions from CD1, because the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy leads the collective at Los Angeles State Park with the city of LA, mostly for the city lands at the state park site. And they're very proud of the fact they're beginning construction on laying several new artificial turf fields at the city leased lands on state parks. And I've, pushed back on it when it was initially raised, but they're moving forward, and that's in CD1, and it's, it's a state park, but it is the city lease. So I was curious if there had been any pushback from CD1, or if you had good engagement with CD1. And it blows my mind that it's going to be adding to the heat and adding to the injury rate, and it's adjacent to habitat that State Parks is doing a great job of stewarding. And there's endangered species that they're protecting right there, and the runoff from those fields will go right into that wetland, and it's just blows my mind. So I was curious if you'd gotten specific feedback with respect to that in particular at Rio. If not, it might be worth a conversation. And then Terry, I was going to suggest that if you get a CIS passed, that you share it not only with this group, but that you share it with the broader progressive NC Google group, because they often, on that progressive Google Mail group, they often share CISs that people have managed to pass, and that they're encouraging other neighborhood councils to pick up.
I don't know who that is. Lisa might know who that is.
Lisa, you're on that mailing list. Yeah.
Yes, I am.
So I would suggest that, maybe with a tiny bit of background, that you get that out there more widely as well for folks who don't have reps on the NCSA.
Yeah.
Thank you. We will reach out to CD1. Kathy, we haven't worked with them, right?
I did send them an email. They're on recess. So we have a plan to meet with every council office.
I have spoken to Council Member Hernandez's staff on this informally, and the park you're mentioning was not part of the conversation. There seems to be, the same concerns that Rec and Park has with respect to an equity issue of making sure that the fields are provided for people in underserved communities. We think those can easily be addressed, but there's no question that that's going to be one of the areas in which the opposition will lean into. They will also lean into an argument that they're now making, where they say if you replace it with natural grass, you'll put a bunch of fertilizers and pesticides on it in order to make the field usable. That's going to be one of their arguments. And then they're also going to just lean into the cost argument, which they have to be very selective in how they determine that. So I don't think that's our strongest argument.
Yeah, Yeah, I would just suggest that you should have data on,
We do.
We do.
you know, particularly at Rio, you know, we know when it was installed, we know what they've spent, we know it, we should have all the data on what's gone on there already and that they're already replacing it and then proposing to add more. It's a hot spot, you know, and we know that the injury rates go up, we know that the heat goes up and it becomes unplayable, so it can't really be an equity argument, and we need to get
Yeah.
better at that.
Melanie,
And
if
in
you
that
have,
particular implementation, the way that the field that's already there is designed is that the drainage underneath the artificial turf directly dumps into the habitat restoration thing that you coordinate.
I know, and they're adding a couple more, and besides the main one, and it breaks my heart. And I think on top of that is the sort of mind-blowing, you know, in theory, fact that the group managing the coordinated multi-agency effort there is the Santa Monica Frickin' Mountains Conservancy. You know, so
so you're saying
excuse
that
me.
that'd be a great group for us to reach out to. And if you have, and Charles have more information on CD1, then maybe you could put something together for us that make it a little bit easier, because we're reaching out to
Between state
multiple
parks and the
projects.
Mountains Conservancy, they should be arguing against this themselves and, you know,
Yes.
negotiate with city rec and parks, but they should be on our side on this. And it's just mind blowing that they're,
Sounds like we
have
need
it.
to add them to our list.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Kathy?
So I have two questions. One, what is the motion? Is the motion that we support the council motion, or does it go beyond that, what we're voting on today?
Just that.
Okay, because I can support that. But as I have expressed in other meetings, I think there's going to have to be a transition with regard to rec and parks, because there's so many fields that they already have. They are recognizing problems with the existing fields. So I feel pretty optimistic about for the future, them reconsidering it. But things that are, you know, like within the next 6 months, I don't really know.
Sure.
No, because this is just a report back. So there's no way there's going to be a ban or moratorium within 6 months. I mean, I'd be ecstatic if there was, but I don't see that happening. I mean, maybe, but
Even if it comes to that point where everything goes the way we want, Kathy, the way we have always, as a coalition, positioned this is that we are not pushing for a motion that would require the immediate ripping out of all the artificial turf that's installed, but rather that it would just simply at end of life, when it would have to be replaced anyway, and you're going to have to line item out all those expenses anyway, that time you transition to a natural surface so that it would not explode budgets or, you know, alter things in some kind of way that would make it untenable financially.
Thank you. Thank you.
Which is a position that we already took as the LANCSA.
right.
And at this point, we are already running behind, which we always do. So let's take a vote if that works for folks. So the vote on the table is to support Bloomin' Fields motion 240602, I believe, as amended. And thank you, Kathy. I haven't read it myself, but for Kathy Schreiner for pointing out that the amendment is in there. I'm gonna have to look at that and figure out how they did that. And I'm still learning, obviously, how this very muddled council file management system works. And none of us found it. I mean, Charles didn't find it, Kathy Shaver didn't find it, Terry didn't find it, I didn't find it, so thank you. And Muriel, are you ready for us?
Yes.
Great.
S-
The floor is yours.
Lisa?
Yes.
Yes. Charles?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Aurora?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes. Glenn Bailey?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, thank you. AJ?
Yes.
Thank you. Lionel? Lionel.
I can't vote. I'm no longer a neighborhood council board member. They
Yes,
removed
you,
me.
as Lionel, you and I discussed it the other day. You can, because I've not been notified yet, so you can vote.
Oh. Okay,
Oh.
yes.
Oh, sorry to hear that one. Terry?
Yes.
Nan Kim?
Yes.
Thank you. Susan Shelby?
Yes.
Nish Krishnamurthy?
No, sorry, abstain.
Abstain. Okay, fair. Mindy Mann.
Yes.
Thank you. Joanne D'Antonio.
Yes.
Thank you. Kathy Schreiner.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ravi Sankaran.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 15-0-1, one being abstention. And did I put that in the X? I guess I could put that in the Excel. Hold on.
Okay, thank you, folks. Thank you very much for your help. And we are now moving on to our next issue, which is the Sepulveda Basin. For gosh, I don't even know how long now. I guess about a year. I could be wildly off on that. Well, no, we've been working on it for way longer than that. I'll hand it over to Melanie, who can correct me on all of this. The Sepulveda Basin folks have been working on a plan for the Sepulveda Basin for a while. And last Christmas, Kathy Schreiner and Melanie and I worked on a letter on the draft plan saying that we were pretty unhappy with it. And in June, the final plan was released. And I'm sorry, I should back up. In January, the LANCSA voted to support that letter, and so we sent it out to leadership. And in June, the final plan was released, and I haven't looked at it mainly because it's so complicated and politically written that I am not technically savvy or smart enough to know what it says. So I asked Melanie to look at it and come back to us and tell us what it says. Largely because Kathy Schreiner told us that City Council is going to vote on it again and tell us, decide if they approve it or not. And it occurred to me that it might make sense for us to weigh in on this final plan. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Melanie Winter, who can tell us what she thinks of the final plan. I hope that made sense. That sounded a bit convoluted, but I'm handing the floor over to Melanie, who is the director of the River Project and who is really an expert on the Sepulveda Basin.
Thanks. Expert partly because we did the technical feasibility study that preceded this for restoration of the 8 miles of river and tributary within the basin. Technical work that hasn't been done by this consultant team yet. So I concur. This is a very politically written document. It's very carefully worded. It's, to the point where words don't mean anything often. One of the things that makes this difficult, my original thought for this body was to essentially use our letter that we had approved and submitted and go through the plan and see what, if any, of our comments had been taken to heart or changes had been made. It's quite difficult to do because despite the $3 million budget, they did not do a response to comments document. They did not publish all the comments received, and they did not respond comment by comment, as you will see if a document is going to go through an EIR. I guess they decided that since it wasn't technically going to go through a programmatic EIR, that they didn't have to do that. So it's kind of in line with their whole take on outreach and engagement. It's more, one of our comments had spoken to how it was more about number of public touch points than it was about actual engagement with the community. And that it was difficult to see in many cases what community priorities were, but even when you could see that, the plan itself did not reflect those priorities well. So many of those things are still the case. I found it challenging to go comment by comment. I did run across a few things that were, we were very specific on. And then when I was doing a word search to see where they were putting that, in the final plan. It came up 3 times, and 3 times it was the same paragraph over and over. And this paragraph was deflecting to, you know, oh, community plans and many other agencies will have to address that concern. It's a big concern, but nothing to do with us. And repeated 3 times in the plan. As an example, our first comment had to do with their claim to use natural systems thinking. And not only is natural systems thinking not defined in their glossary, but other than saying we're doing it, it doesn't appear anywhere in the plan either. Many of the things they say that they're doing, they're deferring until later. So I would love to, I don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but I would love to work with a couple of other people just to have a conversation about how we want to approach this, because they don't make it easy. One of the other ways that I've been looking at it is in looking at their 37, excuse me, sorry, 47 projects that they have articulated in this plan. And what they've done with each project is identified which phase they intend to have the project completed in. So if you want to know what their priorities are, you look at the projects that are in either O&M or phase 0, which is, you know, a project that's already been funded by another entity, or 1.1 and 1.2. Those are the ones that are likeliest to have traction before the Olympics. And I think for me, many of these projects do not speak to the priorities that were expressed throughout the public engagement process. We didn't hear folks asking for the promenade that is there strictly to make something, to give people something to do in the basin when they come to the Olympic events, to make it look fun, you know, to build a restaurant and a promenade so that people have an attraction to do besides the event. No one was asking for that. There are some things that, you know, are like, yeah, sure. The mobility gateways, you know, connecting the Orange Line stops into the basin, making them relate to the basin, making it easier for folks to use the basin with, you know, getting there by public transit and then using a bicycle to get around. And some of those sort of transit elements, I think, are going to be the easiest for them to fund. And I think we could happily support. But the festival plaza, the promenade, the restaurant, many of these things that they're pushing on getting done do not, and the Grand Allée, do not reflect stakeholder input and priorities on this, and they're not climate resilient. Building a resilience center, on the other hand, could be great. But what they've led with as project number 1 is, I see it as cover. It's, you know, wildlife reserve enhancements. The reserve is falling apart. As part of the Wildlife Area Steering Committee for decades, it's just been impossible to get the sort of attention that's required there. So they're just proposing a kind of generic, well, anything that's specified here came from Audubon and CNPS, came from the Wildlife Area Steering Committee, as here's our list of needs. So they're like, sure, let's put that right up front and it'll make us look responsive. But the very next project in here is early action, what they call early action habitat and basin operations. And essentially what it is a wholesale clearing. And I mean, clearing, removal of, you know, removal of debris along with brush and slash, you know, to make things look cleaner and to make things, to pretty it up, right? So it looks decent. For it says this project will provide a clean look to the basin's environmental areas. It also claims that it'll reduce wildfire risk, but the last time we had any brush and slash to reduce wildfire risk, we lost all of our habitat in the South Reserve. So there's concern, and I think our concern should be, were our comments taken seriously? Where are they reflected in the plan? That's one thing. Second is in a near-term concern about whether or not the investments that are going to be made reflect the priorities that the community expressed, and whether or not they are long-term and truly necessary, or if it's just going to be brush and slash for the event so it looks clean, and a little thing here and a tree planted there and like that. And then the big promenade and the alley and the restaurant to keep people distracted during the Olympics. That's a big piece of the concerns. I have many other concerns, of course. If you look specifically at what they're proposing for the waterways, this is not at all what is necessary, what is needed. It's very sort of 30-year-old, old school gabions, not process-based restoration, not floodplain restorations. It's just, again, a different aesthetic approach. So it's almost overwhelming how horrible this is. But for this committee, I would love to, I mean, it can't just be me. So I'm happy to have a conversation with some folks, but I think truly, there are not going to be as many events as originally proposed, but there's still going to be events, and there is no real oversight. And there has to be oversight. And if there's not legitimate oversight, and believe me, the steering committee did not provide oversight for this at all. It was a rubber stamp committee. So if there's not community-driven, genuine oversight about each dollar invested here, it's going to be very bad for the Valley. And as someone, and Glenn can speak to this even better than I can, who for decades has been looking for support from the city in the Basin, it's kind of insulting to see this big, huge plan and the big, huge promises, and to know that none of them are going to be meaningful for what the Basin needs. So it's not reflecting this committee's priorities, and it's such a splashy greenwash, hot mess. Glenn. Then you have it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you'll be able to hear me. Okay. All right. So, in many issues, they say follow the money. For this issue, I'd say follow the sponsor, which was Nuri Martinez, CD6, who not just her, but her predecessor and all before that, basically saw the Sepulveda Basin, 2,150 acres, largest open space, not even owned by the city, Army Corps of Engineers owned, as a place to plop down on free land. Hey, we don't have to buy the land, and we can put up whatever we want. We've been fighting this for decades and decades and decades. And there's things that we did fight that didn't get put in. So my overall concern when this process first started is that this is a more elegant or more sophisticated Trojan horse method of getting things that they want, not just for Olympic venue type things, whatever they may be. And by the way, I'm a bit troubled that they finished the public process and then said, oh, we'll plop in the Olympics things once the Olympics people decide what they want there. That is not public engagement and participation, because you never know what that might have been.
That was within a week. Within a week after the plan is when the Olympics events were announced.
Okay, so I'll make this short. I basically don't trust the city. I think that when the city got the Prop K and some of the other things, they went through and put a whole wish list of projects and say, oh, we can't deviate from that because it's in the Prop K 30 years ago and doesn't matter any of this. And it's just been a constant battle. So I personally don't trust the city, and I also especially don't trust the city when they have money. Because once they have the money, then they'll say, well, we got to spend the money, we got to put it in there. So even though there may be some components in this plan, and I do defer to Melanie with regards to the environmental components and, talking about it, but actually doing it. But I agree, as far as the priorities, it's going to be driven by follow the money. What remains of Prop K and any future funding things that they get. And their predilection is, if the land is not built on, ultimately that's their goal, is to build it on it. And that keeps them from having to buy additional open space, additional parkland, where it's really, really needed. They went through whole presentations on this thing about communities of need surrounding the basin. And I assure you that that they're not going to spend any of their money or anyone else's money to buy parklands in those areas of community need when they've got the basin there that they can plop in whatever facilities that they want to do. So to my mind, having a group such as Sustainability Alliance do anything other than, I certainly would not support this, but I was interested in what Melanie had to say. And, I don't know if opposing would help us as far as being, helping us for any future leverage we might have, but I certainly would not want us to be supporting this, even if there was anything of, possibilities to improve, the wildlife area. But I'm not willing to sell out the wildlife area just, to be able to get them what they want to do for 2,000 other acres. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you. And thanks, Melanie, for your leadership on this.
Oh, sure. I'm very frustrated with folks who've sort of got on board with this and who are susceptible to the greenwash. And even LA Waterkeeper put out a thing like, oh, this is great, in their little weekly newsletter. Oh, this is the city's great plan. It's just shocking, especially, Glenn and others of us who are Valley people who have tried so hard for so long to protect and bring the proper resources to the basin. We know that there are some really fundamental changes that need to be made, and just throwing money at it is not going to help and it's not going to make it long-term sustainable. It's certainly not going to enhance climate resilience. These are nice, shiny, fun things and lots of great talk, but we can see from the plan where their priorities are and where sort of the end game is going to go. And it's not going to be much good. And remember, we had an event there for 84 Olympics, didn't we? The velodrome. And I mean, look what that did. Nothing for the basin. And there's so much opportunity here. It's really hard. And so it's such an important piece. And I think also they even on the community stability stuff, there's not a proposal in here to constrain Airbnb rentals. There's not renter protections. There's nothing serious in here. They're punting on all the things that are really important to the surrounding communities. And they're, pardon me, but bullshitting on all the stuff for environmental protection and climate resilience. So it is very much, driven by a former council member and being pushed by folks who have followed, and it's Olympics. And to think that we're going to get anything good out of this without significant oversight. And I also wanted to say that on the oversight piece, the Wildlife Area Steering Committee has been sort of disempowered bit by bit over the last decade, pretty significantly. And that, even when it's at its strongest, has not proven to be enough to create good stewardship. And the idea was hearing that the team was sharing with elected officials about how they were going to fix that, like have Pecorino Beautiful do it, were just stunning in their ignorance to me. It's like, what? It's just, this is, sorry, I will shut up. I didn't mean to talk so long. I have 1,000 things to say about this. Obviously, it's just, to my mind, a massive missed opportunity on so many levels. But, can't look back, look forward in terms of what we can salvage. I would love to talk to some folks about both strategy and focus on this, because I think it's important for people, particularly people in the Valley, to speak up before this goes to a vote in council.
Okay,
That's
I'm
it.
gonna call on Kathy and Charles, and then I'm going to, I'm putting myself in the queue. Kathy Schreiner. And I keep forgetting to ask people to introduce themselves, so please remember to introduce yourselves.
All right, thank you. So I'm Kathy Schreiner. I'm the president of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council and a member of the Alliance and the Advocacy Committee. And I guess first I want to say that I don't really think there's anything productive we could do before it's voted on in council in August, because they're just voting on the overall concept, not even the 47 projects. That same statement from engineering that said that it would go to the council in August said that every single one of those projects will have to have its own processing through council. So there's going to be many opportunities on a project by project basis to do it. I would like to, work with Melanie and Glenn and whoever on some strategy. I have to say that my strategy point of view might be a little different, because Van Nuys is right on the other side of the 405 from that park, and it represents a major opportunity for our families. We are totally locked in. We do not have room for another park in Van Nuys, even though we are counted as the high need when they, county did that survey about which areas need parks. So I have wanted to focus on how do we get families over there? How do we get more education for families? How do we do, some of those kinds of things which aren't really addressed in the plan, but I mean, I've started mentioning them to the council office and to other people whenever I get a chance. So I don't really want to throw out the opportunities that are really there for people who are not yet now using the park and could really benefit from it. So I wanted, and then, in terms of, and I know Melanie and Lisa both know that all the stuff they had about community services, I told them was just total fluff and didn't even match the things that the city was already committed to doing. So, I mean, those were just empty chapters as far as I'm concerned. So, there's lots to be done, but I do want to advocate for the lower income families that could really benefit from the park.
Charles?
Yeah, I'll just jump in really quickly and say, Melanie, I have tremendous appreciation for your knowledge on this subject, for the hours and hours and hours of work that you have put in on this project, and how you have shared that with me and others and educated us. And I know I only know a tiny fragment of 1% of what you know about this project. That being said, I think everybody in the environmental world agrees that this is not what we wanted, maybe could have been worse, definitely nowhere close to as good as it could have been. Is there something that LANCSA specifically you feel could do in the now that you feel would have a tangible impact in a positive way?
I think, look, we put a lot of work into some very specific comments. And other than a thank you for your comments, we have no idea. It's very, very difficult to see if those comments were really reflected. It feels on the first read that they just doubled down on some BS as opposed to dealing with them legitimately. And when they don't do a response to comments, it makes it very difficult. I would love to talk to folks about what NCSA can do. I think my idea to sort of center it on our comments specifically, because we voted on those, to make sure that those things are moved or continued through in terms of priorities and in some cases specifics. But I do think that they need to know that entities other than the Wildlife Area Steering Committee or other individuals in a fragmented way have concern about this. I mean, No Olympics is going to weigh in on a few things, I'm sure. Alyssa will have some things to say. Other individuals will have some things to say, but NCSA is at least a collective. So I feel like I would like to discuss it. I don't want to be the one to say, I think this specifically is the way to go. I have some ideas, as does Kathy. And I think if there's a couple other folks, particularly folks in the Valley or folks who feel strongly about climate adaptation and the Olympics, would like to have a conversation, I think that would help to focus. And I don't want to, I don't want to dominate. And I also don't want to be, you know, there's an educational process that's part of this as well, so people don't get surprised. I don't want to, you know, be like, well, Melanie knows it. It's like we should all know it. So I'd like to do it through a conversation, because there's a lot of money that's got to get spent, and the potential to spend it wisely, I think, is slowly eking away, but it's an opportunity for us to underscore what our priorities are, not only for the basin, but for the city in general and how we approach these kinds of things. And I think this is I can't find the word in my head and it's probably too literary anyway, but this is not a test case and I can't find the word, I'm sorry, but this is a good sort of thing upon which to throw down, I think, in general. If that makes sense, Charles, and I would, you know, welcome you into the conversation or anybody else.
Okay, I have wrote a list of things to say. My first thing, and it's really a question, so if you can answer, Melanie, I would like the answer. The thing I'm most curious about is, because they gave us a little teaser. They told us back when we met with Climate Reality San Fernando Valley back in Mayish. They said, yes, we're dredging more soil than we were going to. So do you know, Melanie, were you able to figure out from looking at the document what they did on that? Because that was the big thing that you were most bothered by and that we pushed hardest on back in December, January. So what did they do and what did they not do? I would like to know.
What they didn't do was use floodplain reclamation as the way to accomplish that. So they didn't say, yeah, let's legitimately widen the floodplains. What they didn't do was use the restoration of ecosystem function to accomplish that, which is what we showed them was technically the way to go on this. Since they don't really want to do that, they have no plans to do that. What they did was propose a number of other projects to basically dig some more holes. You know, they're like, yeah, we can dig a bunch of more holes here behind the dam. One of them is their last project called the Regional Water Supply Storage Project, which connects to the crazy Mark Gold engineer gone mad idea of changing the entire dam operation at Sepulveda Basin so that it no longer functions as the kind of dam that it has been since its inception, but it becomes a different kind of dam entirely. So redoing the entire dam, digging a lot more holes, creating storage, and then holding that storage until after a storm has passed, not letting it infiltrate, mind you, holding that as storage, and then piping it to Tillman, and then send it to the Northeast San Fernando Valley. So the big, huge, they sort of conflated the crazy Mark Gold project with, we're just going to dig a bunch more holes. So if you go to almost one of the last pages, it's the last project, it's project 47. You can see all these big old holes they're digging. And that goes along with the other big holes that they're digging north and south of the river between White Oak and Balboa. So they're just proposing to excavate more big pits. That's how
So
they
I
do
realize
it.
we're talking over most people's heads because you're talking over my head, and I studied this really hard back in December. So I don't want to get too into the weeds and use it, as you said, we probably should do some of this offline. But are you saying that that project that was proven to be unfeasible a long time ago by the Army Corps of Engineers is sort of being, like they're sort of reviving that? Is that in part what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Mark Gold was pushing for it, and then Waterkeeper got on board because Mark must know what he's talking about. So they pushed very hard for it, so that got in there, and then they
That's a
added some more
problem, and I
pits.
hate, okay, and that's what LA Waterkeeper was pushing for and what some people signed on to. Okay.
I mean, because it's, you know, engineering, so it sounds fancy, so it must be good. But you know, we showed technically that just restoring floodplain function gets you the excavation, gets you the flood protection through that removal of soil volumes, as well as all the other benefits of water supply. And they just can't wrap their heads around how a river might actually do that. So they're like, it must need to be engineered. So let's just dig some pits and build some pipes.
Okay, so, okay, I want to say, and then, no, I think we should wrap this up because I know we're probably losing people because we're almost losing me.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's just the nature of this very, very unpleasant, awful beast. Just so you guys know, I mean, nobody knows this here except for I think me and maybe one other person. Well, many of you know, we, the LANCSA, are on this LA 28 working group. And the LA 28 folks have actually agreed to join one of our meetings in the fall and talk about what they're doing, what we're doing. So that's a huge, huge, huge thing, actually. Very big deal. And we can talk about this with them in a very, 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 very nice, very, very, very polite way in the fall. I think, Melanie, that and you might disagree with me. In fact, I suspect you will, and maybe you'll persuade me otherwise, but I think because we did this very heavy lift, Kathy, you and I, in December, January, I said, and because as Kathy said, the projects are going to be approved project by project. I think we should stick to the work we did in December and maybe focus on a few of those things and hit those things really, really hard and say, this is what we said in December, January, or this is what we said in January, and we're still saying them. And this is why we're not happy. And this, like, you didn't listen to us, and so we're saying it again.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of this is I think there needs to be, we can't just let the vote happen and have nobody say anything. They need to know that people are paying attention still and that they're still not happy. Right. That's all I'm looking for. And I think emphasizing our letter and certain points in our letter that we don't feel were legitimately addressed kind of stuff, and that we want more legitimate engagement and oversight as this moves forward. And we were very unhappy with their process kind of stuff. Those just a handful of points at this juncture. I do have a word of caution about how each project needs to be approved. We're in, more than halfway through 2024. So we got what, 3.5 years? Not even, right, before these projects have to be done. And if each project is going to go to council for approval, there's no discussion at council. So if we're not clear about what projects we don't want them to spend time lining up money for, we need to say something sooner rather than later. Otherwise, there's no point to trying to push back against this kind of stuff as it comes to council one by one. So that's why I was focusing on the stuff in 0 and O&M and 1.1 and 1.2 in terms of things that were like, yeah, no, we do not want money spent on that. This has value. We'll support you on this. These things are not what the community was asking for. And if that kind of money is going into the basin, it can't be so obviously only short term. We on those projects, I think we might want to say something, because once they have decided if they're going to go to council, they've already put their money together and there's no pushing back. So that's it. I'll shut up. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Kathy,
if anybody wants to have a conversation about it, hit me up and I would love to.
Let me say one thing. I'm worried about time. I mean, if we just focus on the letter that we already wrote, we won't even have to take it back to a vote because everybody already supported the letter. If we go project by project, we have to take it to a vote. And I don't know that we have time because I don't know what when I say August, I don't know if they mean August 1st or August 31st. That's just two thoughts. Kathy Schreiner, go ahead.
Well, I mean, with regard to the early projects, I agree with focusing on those. And some of you know that they already put some in federal funding for some of those mobility things. So there may be other things we're not aware of that they're already making some applications for. But especially Melanie, the things related to the reserve. I mean, you and the committee have so much legitimacy on those that I think we really should be very loud about what we think those should be, and find out what funding they're seeking to do that, and really try to shape it.
I agree. And also on the promenade, the restaurant, those kind of investments announcements, it's just like, oh, really? So that you can find money for?
But those are
Um,
not early on, are they? In the first?
Yes, they are in the early phase
Okay.
stuff.
Right.
All the stuff that is Olympic event supporting stuff that is going to be insanely expensive is in the early phase stuff. And that's kind of what I think we should fundamentally be pushing back on.
But you're not.
Can you hear me?
You're not attacking
Yeah.
the community gardens for the indigenous people in the restaurant using those
I
food.
think I've got
Wait a minute, Glenn. Go ahead, Kathy.
I think I have poor reception. I'll stand down. Thanks.
Well,
It's
Melanie,
okay.
one of the
I'm
things-
fine. I'm fine with the native space, the space for indigenous.
Okay.
A restaurant is, that would never have happened. Nobody asked for that. That's for the Olympics, right? Nobody is asking for a restaurant in the basin. I'm really curious what the Corps thinks about a restaurant in the basin. This is just, it's not something that's serving all of us, moving forward. If you asked this committee, would you rather spend $5 million, $10 million on this restaurant thing, or would you rather put that into programs for youth and habitat restoration and additional water supply and flood protection? If there had been a legitimate engagement process, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Well, I agree with you that the Valley NC should really be getting together and trying to figure out which of those projects we want to have really emphasis on.
Yeah, and I would coordinate with the Wildlife Area Steering Committee, who has been, laser focused on the basin for 30 plus years.
No, you should.
So they know and have been burned by and know what the backlog is, et cetera.
Right.
Okay. Who here, if anybody wants to meet outside of this meeting and try to figure out a path forward?
Me?
All right. Melanie
Yes, of course.
Glenn.
and Glenn.
I'll come if I'm available, but don't schedule the meetings around me. So.
And Charles. Okay, I will, I don't know when I'll do this, but soon I will try to convene a little group and see how we can proceed. All right, thank you guys. Now to committee reports. I'm not sure if my slides will work, but let's try them and see, and maybe I'll just try to talk while I pull them up. Where did they go? It's very odd. Oh, I think what I did before was my fault, maybe. Maybe I did something wrong. That's very possible. Okay. Bear with me. Oh, but they're not. Okay, I'm having a little problem. Okay.
What if you go to the email you sent to us and just click on the link?
No, that's not gonna help me, but I'm trying to do something that will help me. So I don't know, something went a little awry, but I'm trying to restore something. Oops, it's not helping. So I'm going to try to do my report from my head. Civic assemblies, we've been doing some fun things with civic assemblies. I won't go into what they are, but they're very exciting. We've done some stuff with, oh, Terry, can you talk about the comprehensive plastics reduction program for a moment, please?
Sure. LA Sanitation came up with a draft plastic reduction plan, and we were able to work with Reusable LA to persuade them in their commentary that we need to include a paragraph on eliminating artificial turf as one of the upstream products. And so that was included there. And in their outreach, they did say they were happy to work with other organizations like NCSA and include products. So I need to follow up with them and remind them that artificial turf needs to be included. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And okay, I'm gonna keep, now I have to try to figure out how to get this screen share to come through. Charter reform and ethics reform have been very, very disappointing. We've been working on that, but that hasn't been going very well. But if you folks know anybody who might be interested in being on the newly created Charter Reform Commission, there's a training coming up for the end of the month that they should attend. ED1 has, I think, the mayor's office apparently, Kathy Schreiner, why don't you explain this one? Because you're the one, well, and Joanne, both of you guys are the reason I found out about this. So why don't one of you guys take that one, please?
Well, I'll just be really brief and then somebody else can add in. The mayor's office, has been trying to get an ordinance based around ED1, but since it hadn't gone through Plum, they finally just made some changes to ED1. And so those had to do with areas to be exempted. And so they made it clear that HPOZs, you can't have an ED1 project there. They marked off some areas in the hillsides that they considered to be fire safety hazards and said you couldn't build them there. And certain types of buildings, projects that already have the rent control, that projects under above a certain size, you couldn't demolish those in order to do an ED1. So those were basically, I think, the 3 changes that were made.
Okay, thank you. And I think the problem earlier with slides was my fault, by the way. I think I figured out what happened.
There's one more thing about trees and that that eventually when the landscape ordinance is passed and there's a workshop webinar on the 31st about the revised draft, but eventually the ED1 projects will be subject to the landscape ordinance, which is a point system, and the mayor now says that they can't ask for more than 25% reduction in the requirements of the landscape. So she's put a limit, but it's not a lot, but it's something. So if they have 27 points that they have to achieve, they could ask for 25% less points, I guess. So figured out they could get around 21 points or something like that.
Okay, I didn't follow that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, better than it was, but not as good as we would have liked.
Well, I'm wondering because the landscape ordinance folks in the planning department said that all projects were supposed to be subjected to it. But then again, any code can ask for a variance. So I guess it's probably a good thing that the mayor put a limit to how much of a variance a project under ED1 could ask for. So, I mean, it's something. That's all I can say. It's something.
Okay,
Thank you. I'll just say one thing quick. The limiting development in very high fire risk areas was there before, so it wasn't an add-in. We were asking for limiting in high fire risk areas, which would have been an add-in, but we didn't get it. And we were also asking for, myself and a few other folks, trying to push on that directly with folks in planning, and asking for specifically limiting development in flood zones. And that didn't get anywhere. So very high fire risk, not high fire risk. And you can still build in floodplains, and 13 developments in floodplains happened under the first 8 months of ED1. So it's a different way of putting essentially largely low-income housing in high risk areas. If you don't include high fire risk and flood zones, then you're basically saying, good luck. But we built housing. So it's another way of redlining, climate redlining, I think. So
Yeah, so always more work to be done. LAist article on trees. Charles and Kathy Schreiner, can you guys take this one?
I didn't get any response back
sentence
from
each?
Elias this week, so I still have to work on that. But we're trying both to get them to understand what was wrong with their article on trees and to open up some topic areas and especially using their Air Talk program to focus on native trees.
Sorry, do you guys mind explaining what the LAist article is about for those who may not have had a chance to read it?
Sure. Yeah, so they have made a topic of things related to plants and trees and whatever, but the one that they had about trees, Charles, you say what was wrong. Basically they were naming the wrong kinds of things as being native trees, and
Essentially, it was a, hey, look at all the pretty flowers that are available for you to go to look at on trees. And I mean, that is fine. This started as an email amongst friends kind of a thing where I said, you know, it's troubling to me that there's no mention of the fact of which of these trees would actually support butterflies and life and see things more than just pretty flowers, but to actually see biodiversity in action kind of thing. So out of a list of, I think it was 20 trees, something like that. 2 of them they referenced were native, but of those 2, one of them was misidentified as the wrong species, and the other one had the wrong photo of a different species entirely. And so the point being, they didn't actually identify any locations for the 2 natives. All the other trees were very easy to go identify and find and see. If you wanted to then go plant them in your yard, it would be very easy to do. The 2 native species, if you had read that article and that was your only introduction to this, you never would have been able to find those trees or see them.
There was a subsequent article though about natives.
Yes.
It was better.
Much better, yes.
That's true.
Okay, and missing bioswales, that's a topic we've talked about in the past that I want us to get back to in the near future, I hope. Landscaping for wildfire resilience, we talked about in the past. We are waiting for Stephanie to pick this up again, I think. Sepulveda Basin, we discussed tonight. Olympics and Paralympics, we discussed tonight. Artificial turf, we discussed tonight at length. Sustainable Congress, I thought we were making progress on getting a sustainable Congress of Neighborhoods this year. We've hit a huge obstacle, what's the word, problem. So I will keep you posted. That might not happen this year. Our next meeting is August, did I write 7th, 4th? I think it's 4th. I hope I wrote 4th because I
You
think
wrote
it's
the 4th.
good. Okay, next up, oh, sorry, Adriana, go ahead. I can't see the.
Hi there, I'm Adriana Dela Cruz. I'm on the planning committee for the Congress of Neighborhoods. I'm here to ask, what can we do to help the process along if you still wanted to be able to participate, or if there's something we can do to be an advocate for you?
Thank you. I guess I don't mean to, Aurora, do you want to help me with this one? I don't mean to be.
We can have a conversation offline if you
Okay,
like.
let's do that. Let's have a
Okay,
conversation
perfect.
offline, Adriana.
I
Thank
will
you.
put I will send you my contact information.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adriana.
Okay.
Thank you, Adriana.
Anything to do, we can
Nice.
help you. Your committee has been a part of it. The work you all do is extremely essential, and we certainly don't want to feel you're being left out or not given the attention you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. I appreciate that. Why am I not advancing? I don't know why I'm not advancing.
Can I chime in briefly? It's Glenn.
Yes.
So I know the sustainability aspect of the Congress is separate from the usual doing a workshop at the Congress. But I did want to share, I was at a meeting. It wasn't the last meeting, it might have been the meeting before, where they were talking about doing box lunches.
Yes.
And okay, so you know about that. Okay.
Yes, I'm very
that was
excited about that. I think that's brilliant, and I was very excited about the choice. Very excited about all of that.
okay. All right.
AJ, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, the first item, just want to just give some quick background to the group before I cover the update, is we've been focusing our advocacy efforts around ongoing developments that have been happening in the Echo Park area, specifically in the Temple Beaudry area, on top of basically uncapped oil wells that are no longer active. Also, the terminology thrown is orphan oil wells. Where basically after the developments took place that there's been ongoing oil spills. So we basically have made progress from having multiple tours to even meeting with CD1 to even at for those of you who were at the general meeting to even getting the Vista Hermosa community in front of the city attorney's office, to also at our last meeting after being in a conversation with the office of Betty Yee, who's actually working on her candidacy for run for governor. So we actually have a upcoming tour for Vista Hermosa tentative for September 10th. Just to get eyes on the state level on this, which is also partnered by our folks from CalGEM. So the second item, this was more at the committee level. So there was a lot of questions of how going solar works in multifamily buildings. So even though this was at committee level, found it very rewarding to give an education on this, since I actually do this for a living. I kind of had to put it in layman's terms because I just kind of found, at least in my opinion, that LADWP didn't really break it down in layman's terms. One of the goals I do have is I would like to maybe just set up kind of a simplified visual, because I did this one a little more verbally, but I found that the group really, I got a lot of questions, which was great. And I'm just really glad that the people who attended my meeting really got something out of it. I'm happy to do this again if anyone has questions on it. The third thing is we've also been focusing our efforts around Council File 20-1150, which was the ongoing issues, which Lionel actually brought the concern to my attention about ongoing air quality issues at the LADWP Valley Generating Station. So we've been working with Lionel. His recent update, and Lionel, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, was that we've just been waiting for an update from CD6 ever since we had a meeting a few months ago from there with them. And then the last item is, and Lisa, you could chime in on this one, but we've been focusing our efforts around the LADWP grant. One of the talking points at our committee meeting was just working our efforts around concerns of SoCal Gas actually marketing their materials. Definitely want to steer away from that. So those are my latest updates. Just as a reminder, our meetings are at 7 p.m. every third Wednesday. Our upcoming meetings actually this Wednesday, the 17th at 7 p.m.
That's great. I have nothing to add. Thank you very much, AJ. Muriel.
Hello. We had our transportation committee meeting this past Thursday. It was postponed from the 4th for obvious reasons. We had a very cool grid alternatives discussion with Stella Ursua from that very company. She was discussing all of these cool community-based charging stations and how they're planning to grow out and do community engagement. And then we also had a motion on congestion pricing with Jacob Wasserman. And yeah, just email me if you have any questions regarding those agenda items.
And we didn't have a motion. There's no motion on congestion pricing, but Metro
Kind of just talked at length.
Yes, and so you guys, we are planning on, I'm not sure when, because this is early days, but Metro really is talking about congestion pricing bringing that to LA like at a much bigger way than we have now. So we'll probably have an event, a meeting devoted to that. Which basically means charging you money to be able to get to places or get to places more easily. And that's how I think of it. And I think it's I mean, it's very controversial. I'm very conflicted about it. I don't know what you guys think about it. But more to come. Joanne.
Hi. I chair the Trees Committee, and Charles is the liaison from the NCSA board. We have done an extensive letter on the sidewalk repair, recirculated portions of the draft DIR, and the reason that there are these recirculated portions having to do primarily with trees is because there was a successful lawsuit against the EIR, and the CEQA judge essentially rejected the EIR. And the plaintiffs and the city have not been able to come up with a settlement because pretty much the city only understands money, and they're not asking for money, they're asking for changes. And so the city attorney spent a lot of money on getting this supplement done so that the project, the sidewalk repair project could move forward. And I sat down and parsed it out. I did most of it myself. Lynette Campy helped me with some parts of it, but for the most part, I did it. And it came out, it has a lot of pictures, and it came out to 47 pages. It's now CFAC's official letter. I have I have maybe 2 corrections I have to make. One was an amendment at the CFAC meeting. And I'm happy to send this out. I should have it done, the 2 corrections done by the end of tomorrow. And if any of you are interested in doing a comment letter, the deadline is July 23rd. So there's not much time, but it's very easy to look at this, skim this, and pick out something that you want to focus on, or you can just endorse the letter. However you want to do it. I tried to make it not that difficult. It's not very dense. Mainly it's picking apart this recirculated draft DIR. So in other words, I quote it and then I pick it apart. So, and when you read those items, they're things like they guarantee 3 years of watering, whereas urban forestry guarantees 5 years of watering on a newly planted tree. So why are these trees being treated this way? And then I have some actual cases of what did the situation look like after they did sidewalk repair, or after they awarded a rebate, did anything get done? Or did the tree get removed and there's no new trees? So it's kind of, no one is actually going back and inspecting what's going on in this program. And that's what I've endeavored to do in these 47 pages. So if you need more information than this long-winded explanation I just gave, please feel free to call me or email me. The next Trees Committee meeting will be on Saturday, August 24th. It says date subject to change, but I'm pretty sure we're going to meet that date because I don't want to get into Labor Day weekend if we meet the following one and it's too soon to meet before. We're doing the Trees postcard campaign, and Charles and I are going to get together and make these postcards. This will be maybe the last meeting before we finalize the postcards. Maybe we'll have a mock-up at the meeting. We're still, I'm still not totally happy with the slogan, so I didn't put anything down here. But I think we're going to leave space for people to write in whatever they feel is on their mind regarding the trees. And if we can get 1,000 of these distributed at the Congress of Neighborhoods and get people to, put a stamp on it and mail it to the mayor, I think this will be helpful to get trees on her radar, because I don't really think they are. There was apparently a rather embarrassing Netflix. There was a show on Netflix where she made a comment about trees that wasn't very knowledgeable. So I need people to help me distribute these there, because I can't be everywhere at the Congress. Actually sacrificing, my son is going to be in town that day, and I'm actually going to still go to the Congress, I think. And my email is down there if you want to get on our trees email list. There's one more thing I want to bring up, which is the fiasco at Elysian Park. I don't know if you're familiar with the children's area there, but it was bulldozed. And it was bulldozed because a park supervisor gave the order. When I found out about this, someone on the trees committee sent me some horrible description of what it was, and I immediately emailed the person who's in charge of trees for all the parks, and he didn't know anything about it. And he said, I'll look into it. And he's not replied back to any of my inquiries. As you know, I chair the Community Forest Advisory Committee, and this came up in public comment, and I made a mistake and let them have public comment, even though it was on the agenda. And when we got to it on the agenda, the representative from Rec and Parks had already left. So it wasn't the person in charge, but it was the ecological specialist for Rec and Parks. And I was really sad that we had missed that opportunity. I felt terrible, but we had a guest that I had promised that she could be first, and I'd given her 50 minutes and she took way longer. So I'm going to agendize this at the next meeting. Since that time, I have found out that the Broad, as in the Broad Museum, has donated the planting of 100 oaks to Elysian Park. And I don't know if there's any connection. I'm trying to find out. I don't have a good person, deputy mayor for parks, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to introduce myself and see what I can do. But the fact that this beautiful area that had native plants and trees, native plants with identification labels on it, and trees, and it was an education area for children. I mean, this was really terrible that they did this, and they did it in the name of brush clearance, which seems very fishy, because it was not, native plants tend not to have a fire problem. So it's usually the invasive plants. So if you have any issues with this, that you want to chime in, I'm collecting people's complaints about this. And I'm going to try a new deputy mayor who's in charge of programs at the parks and see if she will talk to me. I'm worried because she's also a lawyer, and lawyers are not always very forthcoming. So because they kind of are trained not to say too much, I think. So that's where we are. Thanks very much. And if you want to join with us on trees, I do send out important information. And you will get it if you're on our list. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joanne. Now we have 2 minutes for announcements. I have one, which is our next meeting. I think it'll be August 11th, I think. It's the second Sunday of the month typically. And we're going to be focusing on waste. Charles, Adriana, I think that's a legacy hand. Yes, it looks like it was. Charles and then Andrea.
I put a link in the chat a few minutes ago when AJ was talking during the Energy Committee, but the Palms Neighborhood Council did a seminar on that we called the Shared Solar Seminar, which talks about both the LADWP Shared Solar Program, which is aimed at multifamily residential people, tenants. Whether you live in a condo or you're a renter or anything like that, you can participate in this program where your rate is locked in for a decade. So you're protected against electricity increases, and then LADWP uses that contract as collateral to get financing to develop more solar projects. So it's kind of an interesting way to kind of participate in solar, even if you're just a renter or don't have the ability to invest in solar. And we also talk about IRA funding for rooftop solar in it. So the link is in the chat. If anybody would like to take advantage of it, please feel free to share that. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me.
Andrea.
Hi, I also got, I don't know if you read the article in the LA Times with the so-called ratepayer advocate for DWP and the fact that he wants to postpone our goal of going 100% renewable energy by 2035. He said that we're just rushing into it. And I don't know how much background you all have, but basically the motion that started it all was in 2016. And again, this was another study that said, like, basically that lasted about 4 years. So this whole thing about us rushing into it has no validity at all. And then at the last DWP meeting, he also said that we need to stop the feed-in tariff, and he's just advocating for all the wrong proposals. So I just want all you to be aware of it. He's termed out, and we need to have a new advocate who's actually an advocate for ratepayers, not someone who's just going to rubber stamp every single rate hike that he likes, or and that DWP wants, and someone who's also advocating for low-income folks. So anyways, just wanted to flag that.
Holy moly, I did not know that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Holy moly, holy moly, holy moly.
I submitted an op-ed to the LA Times. It was just horrible and shocking.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Joanne.
The planning department is going to release a second draft of the landscape ordinance, which is for projects, residential projects of more than 4 units and commercial projects, new projects. And their webinar is going to be on July 31st at I believe it's 6:30, maybe 6 o'clock. And I will be sending this information to the Trees Committee, but if you're not on the Trees Committee, you can go to the Planning Department website and find the landscape ordinance I want to say workshop, but it's a webinar. And they actually listened to CFAC, and we've sent them a long comment letter, and they acknowledge that they've incorporated some of the ideas that we proposed to them. So we're anxious to see what we may have made it in. This is the most receptive that I've ever experienced with the planning department, except maybe with their tree disclosure form, which was also a real coup that we got. So this was Michelle Levy and Ken Bernstein, and I'll give them credit for at least being they came to CFAC, and well, at least Michelle did, and Ken said to me personally that he really wanted our input. So hopefully we got somewhere with this. Thanks.
Glenn.
Yeah, to Joanne's announcement, I just looked at the planning website a couple hours ago, and it looks like they're doing the informational part of the workshop of the webinar earlier, maybe even 5:30 or 6, and then it's followed by a public hearing after that. So just be sure that you be aware of both segments of that.
I think it starts, yeah.
What I wanted to just make sure everyone's aware of, for the Neighborhood Council Budget Advocates, most years we do a informational sessions with the CAO's office, City Administrative Office, in terms of the city's budget process, understanding how they think and how they make decisions to make recommendations to the mayor. And so we probably will be doing that in August. I don't have the dates yet, but you're all invited. They're typically done by Zoom, and we typically record them. So even if you can't come in live, you can have the recording if you have an interest in influencing how various departments are budget or participating in the budget process. The only difference, of course, is if you're not there while it's going on, you won't be able to ask questions. But okay, that's it. Thanks. Oh, on our website, it's budgetadvocates.org. Once we have the details, we'll post it there. Thanks.
All right. I think that's it. Please complete the evaluation, folks. And thank you, everybody. And I'm gonna grab the chat and have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening. And thank you all for your contributions and hard work. And we've got a lot to do, as we heard tonight. And good night. And Valentina, please connect with Joanne and Lionel and Kathy. Bye,
Yes.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
There's that.